Hello, BookTube. This is my January 2026 reading plan. I'm going to start with manga and then move on to fiction, poetry, drama, science fiction, and end with history. In 2024 and 2025, I have read a ridiculous amount of manga, and I see 2026 being equally ridiculous in the amount of manga I read. And I love that. So let's get started with my manga reading plans. So I'm going to start the year as I did last year with a massive reread of Fairy Tail by Hiro Mishima. Fairy Tail is one of my favorite manga series. It's set in a fantasy world in which people with magical abilities come together to form guilds in which they do various jobs. Fairy Tail is obviously about the wizarding guild Fairy Tail. The main character is Natsu Dragneel. He is the most infamous member of Fairy Tail. He travels around the kingdom of Fiori with his anthropomorphic cat companion, Happy, who is later revealed to be a member of the Exceed race from a different dimension. In the first chapter, Natsu and Happy meet a young wizard named Lucy, who wants to join a guild. After the adventure in the first chapter, Natsu invites Lucy to join Fairy Tail, and Lucy, Natsu, and Happy form the nucleus of a team that the series follows throughout the course of its existence. Later to be joined by Urza Scarlet, the strongest woman in the guild, and Natsu's frenemy, Greyful Buster, with Wendy Marvel and her Exceed companion, Carla, joining later on in the series. So my plan is to read 3 volumes of Fairy Tail every workday and 6 volumes over the course of the weekend, which should take me about 2 weeks to read, give or take. And I'm really looking forward to it. I really need to read some manga. I didn't really read much manga in this past December, except for the November new releases, so I'm overdue to binge on some manga. But what I want to do is something different with how I talk about it, how I wrap up Fairy Tail and the other long series that I will be rereading in 2026. So I think what I might do is, instead of talking about Fairy Tail during weekly reads or as a weekly reads special, I will be devoting Mondays to talking about the manga I've read, both the big rereads as well as overviews of new manga that I've brought into my collection that I do every month or so, which I'll get to shortly as well. So after Fairy Tail, I'm also planning on reading all of Yomotsuhegui, The Tree of Death by Masasumi Kakizaki. This is a series about immortals and a Shinigami's desire to kill them off. I read this volume either January or February of last year, and I just recently picked up the other 2 volumes in the series. So I'm planning on reading the whole series sometime this month, after Fairy Tail. Of course, I also have the December new releases to look forward to, which of course I don't have. So what I do is every month I put in a pre-order for the following month's forthcoming volumes of manga in the series that I actively collect, and debut volumes of series that I would like to try out from Book People. Normally how Book People does it is they will accumulate all of the books from the pre-order and then ship them all together once the final book has come in, which for December, the last book came in this past Tuesday. So I'm expecting my order to be shipped probably sometime next week, and then I would probably get it either at the end of next week or within the next week to 3 weeks, give or take. So I will probably read those December new releases once they come in, probably on a weekend. And that manga haul will probably be the first or second book haul of 2026. And I'll talk about them when they come in. And then, of course, do a Monday special with them, because if I add them to weekly reads, that weekly reads will go overly long, since doing them separately is equally long, but just not as long. So, those are my manga plans. Moving on to fiction, poetry, drama, and nonfiction. I'm going to start with a personal reading project. I would like to, in 2026, finally read all of Alan Hollinghurst, or at least his novels. I'm going to start with the Swimming Pool Library. This will be a reread. I've reread it 3 times, and then I've tried to read it a few more times, and those times it has never quite worked. I have something of a love-hate relationship with this novel. I'm not entirely sure how things are going to develop this time around. The last time it ended up being more on the hate side, but hopefully this time it'll be more on the love side. Regardless, the Swimming Pool Library is set in early 1980s London. It's about a wealthy young gay man who has no need to work. And so he spends his days working out and having sex. One day while cruising, he saves the life of an elderly gay aristocrat, and something of a mentor-mentee friendship develops, with the older aristocrat asking the narrator to write his biography. And what follows is a crash course on 20th century gay life in the United Kingdom, until this friendship shatters at the end. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to rereading the Swimming Pool Library and hoping I can finally read all of Hollinghurst. But I will not be saying it's Hollinghurst's last dance, because I've already said that and it wasn't true. So I will keep trying until I actually do manage to read all of Hollinghurst. So over the course of the first 4 weeks, 4 months in 2026, a number of booktubers will be reading the Sea of Fertility tetralogy by Yukio Mishima, starting with Spring Snow. I've never read this, so this is new to me. And so the booktubers who I know for sure are doing this are Greg of Another Bibliophile Reads and Alan of Big Heart Books and Classics. I'm not entirely sure who the other person who's leading the event is, but I will make sure to shout out Greg and Alan's channels in the show notes down below. So, I've never read much of Mishima's work. I've only read a short story collection, so I'm really looking forward to trying this out, and hopefully I will get on with it. Another booktube event I'm wanting to participate in January is Haggard in January, in which participants read the works of H. Rider Haggard. This event is being run by Randy Ray of The Literate Texan, and I will be trying to reread King Solomon's Mines. So, when I was a teenager, I read King Solomon's Mines, and Alan Quatermain in a the novel omnibus edition from Dover that I no longer have. And I got rid of that edition for whatever bizarre reason. Anyway, but a few years ago I started to want those three novels back. And eventually I got a copy of just King Solomon's Mines. But then I saw this old omnibus edition that has King Solomon's Mines, Alan Quatermain, and Cleopatra. And so I picked this up. So over the years, I have tried to reread King Solomon's Mines, which is about a middle-aged hunter in South Africa who is hired by or joins up with a British aristocrat and his friend, who are looking for the aristocrat's younger brother who's gone missing, looking for a fabled diamond mine. And so Quatermain joins the party, and they go searching for these mines. And they discover a uncontacted kingdom north of what is now South Africa. So I remember liking King Solomon's Mines when I first read it, but subsequent rereads have been not as successful. So I'm hoping this reread will be successful like the first time and not unsuccessful like the previous times. But we shall see, and I will, of course, report back. Moving on to some more personal reading projects, I would like to reread the two poetry collections by Sean Hewitt that I have, Tongues of Fire and Rapture's Road. In part because I want to try to get a better handle on Open Heaven, Sean Hewitt's first novel, which still haunts me, but not in a good way, I don't think. So, there's that. Back to BookTube events, I'm also going to be, at least in part, joining in on some of Endless Drama with Angelia of Read and Reread. And her selection for January is Cat on a Hot Tin Roof by Tennessee Williams. This will be a reread. I've read this play at least twice before. It's about family tensions and conflict coming to a head at the birthday party of Big Daddy Pollitt, a wealthy plantation owner in the mid-20th century. And it's largely about the relationship between his favorite son, Brick, and his wife, Maggie, the eponymous Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. So there's some jockeying for position for the inheritance of this farm, this plantation. The favorite son, Brick, doesn't want it. He's largely not participating. But his wife is very much participating. She wants it. And so part of the conflict is between those two. Part of the conflict is between her and her in-laws. And it's a whole mess. I remember my first read back in my 20s. I quite liked it. My last reading a few years ago was a bit more contentious. I wanted to really argue with Williams and the play. I was in a very argumentative mood at that day. So I'm looking forward to seeing what this third reading of the play will bring, or how I'll react to it. So sticking with BookTube events, I recently heard that there is going to be a reading event dedicated to the heinous novels of Ursula K. LeGuin, who is one of the most important science fiction writers of the 20th and 21st centuries. And so I decided maybe I should participate, try to reignite the love I have for, or had for, prose, science fiction, and fantasy, which over the last 5 years has withered to near nothing. So this event, I don't think there's a set reading order, but it's recommended that you read them in order, I think. So I will be reading for the first time Rocannon's World by Ursula K. Le Guin. And the leader of this heinous read event is Gareth of Book Songs and Other Magic. Although a number of other booktubers are participating, including Michael K. Vaughan, who I think is also participating in the Haggard in January. Or at least finishing up Haggard, which coincides. But anyway. So finally, I'm going to end with After 1177 BC by Eric H. Cline. This is a history of the ancient Near East and Eastern Mediterranean in the aftermath of the Bronze Age collapse, and how the world sort of got back on its feet. What was civilization like in the aftermath of this event? 1177 was part history of this region at the time, but also some scientific speculation and studies of what natural events could have contributed to the collapse. Although I like parts of 1177 and didn't particularly care for other parts, so I'm not entirely sure how I will react to after 1177. So this will be in part participation in Historathon, which is a year-long booktube event in which participants read history. It is led by Vin of Revenant Reads, and the year is broken down into quarters. January, February, and March is prehistory to 500 CE or BC or AD, whatever you want to put. April, May, and June is 500 to 1500. July, August, and September is 1500 to 1820. So if you want to participate in some history reading for Jane Austen July. And then the final quarter, October, November, and December, is 1820 to the present. Again, so you can get some Victorian history reading for Victober. Much like with science fiction, over the last few years, so when I fell out with science fiction and fantasy, I started to gravitate in the early 2020s more to history. But the last year or two, I've started to fall out with history. And so a lot of the history that I've been reading hasn't really worked for me. I'll talk a bit more about that with weekly reads because, I was not too pleased with my reading of my historical reread. And I'll talk more about that on weekly reads. So I'm not entirely sure how this is going to work out. And I'm pretty sure what I have on my docket is a little too much. I'm probably not going to be able to get to all of them. So we'll see how things work out. And I will report back over the course of weekly reads how things do work out. But anyway, wish me luck with my reading, and I will be back tomorrow with weekly reads. So until then, thank you, BookTube. Have a great afternoon and stay safe.